Lots of warm weather, lots of rain means that while my plants are growing, it's been 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks now for the corn. It's coming in, so are the weeds. So lots of weeds to deal with today. These are the peas that I planted. As you can see, they're pretty close, starting to wrap around the trellis for these ones, which were planted a few weeks ago. And then these are the ones that were planted last week that we made the tripods for. So there's a tripod, then we have the trellis set up, and then we have another tripod over here. And you can see these are doing really good too. Seems to be less weedy in this area too, which I'm gonna have to make sure I make a note of that. And then I have a bunch of other things growing in here. These are radishes. And then these are California poppies in here, but right now I don't think anything has really started to come up yet. It's only been a week. Definitely some weeds. And then these are carnations in this bed. And I think there's nothing yet popping up here. Too soon. Same, different breed of carnation in here. And then I have some African marigolds here. These I started inside. And so there'll be a lot of weeding done today. And then I'm also going to put in the ground some plants that my sister brought me from a nursery where she works. So we've got some tomato plants, some purple basil, I believe oregano, dill, and some cucumbers. So we're putting all of those in, and I'm going to start right now though, obviously with all the weeding. I'm also going to be going and getting some heavy nitrogen fertilizer for the corn, because after watching a few videos, it appears that the corn's not going to do well unless it's got some heavy nitrogen fertilizer. So I have to go pick up something probably at Country Power. And once I do that, I'll do that once a week because I guess they're heavy feeders. They also said you have to make sure they're getting enough water, so I'll be mulching all around them. I just have to get a bunch of natural mulch. You can't use anything that's been dyed. So I'll have to pick up some of that. And also Lucas has been doing a lot of wood chipping, so I might be able to just get it from him. All right, time to get to work. Okay, so the majority of the weeding has been done. And I used our garden weasel, I believe is what my husband calls it. And that's this guy right here with the little spikes on him. I used that for the majority of the weeding, and then went through and hand picked out a lot of stuff, raked a lot of things. And because it was so wet the last couple of days, I've got piles of dirt here that I've pulled out that's full of weeds. I'm going to be sifting all that as soon as it's dry enough. I did try to do a little bit with it the way it is, but this is really clay-like soil too, so when it's wet it just doesn't want to sift. But I'll be using the sifter that I have here, which is an English garden sifter. You can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's. They're about $30, but they are well worth it. It's all metal. So after having done all of the weeding, I can now see that I planted 80 seeds for corn, and I have 40 plants that came up. And you can see the gaps here where things didn't come up. So I'll have to make sure that I do a few things. One is to put down the nitrogen-rich fertilizer. The second is going to be to put down the all-natural, like shredded bark, maybe something like that, or wood chips that Lucas can generate for me from all the chipping he's doing. So that will have to go down. That'll help keep moisture in the ground. They have to be watered a lot. And then the last thing is going to be What was the last thing going to be? Oh, pollinating them. So because they're so far apart and there aren't a lot of them, they're not going to be able to pollinate well. And if you don't pollinate, then you're going to have lots of gaps in your kernels, and you're going to have basically corn that you can't eat. So I'll do a video on that. I've only seen it done a couple of times. Basically, you're literally hand pollinating by taking the male part of the stalk and rubbing it all over the silk of the actual corn, and that is what pollinates the corn and how you get a full ear of corn with all the kernels. So that's the corn. And then over here I weeded through all of the peas, which are growing great. So you can see them a little bit better now. And there's the trellis. They're already starting to climb up the trellis. Can't see it, but their little tendrils are out. And then I also put in some new plants. So I have a couple of the purple basil here. These are cucumbers. I have 6 of those. And then I also put in some Swiss chard. That's what's right here. It was not looking too good when I got it. I'm not sure if it's actually going to do well or not, but I figured I'd put it in the ground, and I'm going to water it in just a few minutes. I'm going to water it pretty heavily. It's just a really hot day, and it was probably a shock for it going out of its little containers into the ground. So I did that. I'm not going to do any weeding here in the flower beds or the radishes, just because I want to make sure I know what I'm looking at, and things have not really started to pop up. I think that the radishes have, but it's hard to tell because they also look like a plant that we have around here that's a weed. But I'm pretty sure that those are the radishes and that they're doing okay. As for the flowers, probably going to be a while before those come up. And then over here I put in oregano. Is what we have here. We have 5 of those. I put in some tomato plants here. I'm not sure what variety they are. They were given to me. It says Ace 55 VF tomato. I don't know what that means, but it'll be a surprise. And then there are also Roma tomatoes down here. I put those in here. So yeah, everything's raked out and in piles now. That has to be sifted. Then everything that I can salvage from this, obviously I'm going to keep because it's good soil. And that's going to be it for today. I am going to probably go back up to the house and plant. I have 1 mint plant that I'm going to put in, and then sometime this week I'll come back in and I'll go through and weed with the garden weasel the area here, the walkway. But it's not too bad right now, so I'm not going to try and do that today. And here comes Luke with the water now, so I'm going to wrap this one up for now. And I hope everybody's having a wonderful weekend and getting out in the sun. Take care.